Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be cutting and sewing this cute crop top that you can see on your screen. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. I already have my pattern paper on my work table and we'll start by taking our point. So this is an off shoulder top, so I'm going to be minusing 6 inches before I start placing my point. So the distance from my shoulder to my chest line is 8 inches. The distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. The distance from my shoulder to my under bust point is 13 inches, and the distance from my shoulder to this top length is 16 inches. So the top is going to stop at my waistline. I'm going to go ahead and rule a straight line across all these points, and I'm going to label them: my chest line, my bust point, my under bust point, and my waistline. The next thing I'm going to do is to take my bust span measurement divided by 2, which is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. It is 4 inches. I'm going to add half an inch to it for stitching allowance. So on my bust point, on my under bust point, and on my waist point, I'm going to mark 4.5 inches, and I'll connect the dots into a straight line. So whatever your measurement is, make sure you add half an inch to it for stitching allowance. On my shoulder line, I'm going to add 1 inch to the measurement that I placed on my bust point. So I used 4.5 inches. What I'm going to do is to mark the 4.5 inches, and then I'm going to add 1 inch to it like this. So I'm going to get my ruler and I'll slant from the line on the bust point to meet the dots that I just made on the shoulder line, just like this. So guys, at this point my camera stopped recording and I didn't know till I finished filming this particular part of the video. So I'm going to try my best to explain to you guys what I did here. The next thing I'm going to do is to take in my darts. So I'm going to alter this into a bustier pattern. So I'll go ahead and take my darts on my side front, which is the other side of the pattern paper, not the side facing me. From the dart leg, I'm going to go out by 1 inch, and then I'm going to place it with a dot. I'm doing this on my under bust line, and on the waistline I'm going to go out by 1.25 inches. So I'm just going to place it like this also. And on the center front of this pattern paper, which is the side of the pattern paper that is facing me, I'm going to take half an inch. I'll come out like this by half an inch on my waistline, and on the under bust line also I'll go out like this by half an inch. So after doing that, guys, I'm going to use my ruler to connect the two dots together. So please pay close attention to see how I'm connecting it. This is just basically how we take in our darts. So I'm just going to connect using a straight line like this. So after doing that, on my bust points, I came down by 1 inch, just like this. From the bust point, I came down by 1 inch. I indicated that with a dot. So I used my ruler to create a very nice curve like this from the under bust point to meet the 1 inch dot that I just made. And on the other end, I just used my ruler to connect from that 1 inch dot to meet the under bust line. So that is basically all I did. I hope you understand. If you don't understand, please leave your question in the comment section. So guys, the next thing I'll do now is to tighten my over bust, and to do that I'm going to go out by 1 inch on the center front, which is the side facing me, and on the other end I'm going to go out by 0.75, just like this, and then I'll use my ruler to connect from there to meet my bust line. I'm going to blend this part out like this with my curved ruler in order to have that the shape that we are looking for. So after doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to start placing my measurements. So on my chest line, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart that we already took, and then I'm going to add stitching allowance. On my waistline, I'm going to place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart and I'll add stitching allowance. After doing that, I'm going to connect the dots on the chest line to meet the dots on the waistline. On the armhole area, I'm going to go down by half an inch. I know this top does not have armhole, but I don't want the armhole area of the top to be poking me when I wear it. So I went down by half an inch. I'm going to slant it to meet the other side, and then I'll go ahead and cut. So please pay close attention so you know where to cut. So after cutting, I'm going to place this on my fabric, and then I'm going to cut. For the back, I went ahead to fold this piece of fabric into two. Remember, we removed 6 inches before we started placing our measurements, and the length of our top is 16 inches. I left half an inch on the base to hem it, so I just made sure that what I have here is the same thing that I have for the front. The wideness of this fabric is my bust circumference divided by 4. We don't need to do much for the back, really. I don't want to take that for the back. There is loop at the back. I'm going to reduce the back by 2.5 inches, and I went ahead to cut that out. So this is what we'll be using for the back. I have 2 pieces for it. On the armhole area, just like I did for the front, I'll go down by half an inch, and I'm just going to cut that part out. So after doing that, guys, I don't have enough fabric to cut out lining for this, so I'm going to go ahead and hem the neckline area for the back. So please pay close attention so you understand what I'm doing. But if you have enough fabric, you can cut lining for this. So I'm just going to fold the neckline area like this for the 2 piece. So I've already gone ahead to also cut out the front, and I left half an inch on the base to hem the top. Remember, the center front should be on fold, and for the side front you should have 2 pieces for the side front. So I'll remove my pattern papers and we'll start sewing. So I'll go ahead and open it up. This is my center front, so don't forget it's going to be on fold, and these are my 2 side fronts. So I'm going to place them on each other, and I'm going to pin them all the way around. So guys, I'm done pinning, and this is what I have. So I'm going to keep this aside and work on the sleeves. So for the sleeves, the length of the sleeves is 4.5 inches. I used half inch to hem all the way to the end. I hemmed all the way around, and I also closed the side of the sleeves. As you can see, the wideness of the sleeves is 46.5 inches, and I have another one for the second sleeves just like this. The length is 4 inches, the wideness is 46.5 inches. I also went ahead to cut out these 2 pieces of fabric that I ironed and I folded in form of a bias. So guys, the length of this strap is 6.5 inches on fold. So remember, we minused 6 inches before we started taking our points. So this strap is going to replace the 6 inches that we took out from the shoulder area of our top. I don't know if you understand. So 6 inches is going to be for the front, and 6 inches is going to be for the back. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the middle points of this bias. I'll just use my chalk to indicate the middle point. The next thing I'll do is to run a gather stitch on the upper part of my sleeves. After doing that, I'm going to pick one end of the thread, and then I'll pull gently to form my gathers. So guys, I've gathered my sleeves in place, and what I have is 29 inches. So I'm going to fold it into two equal halves like this. I'll also use my chalk to mark the middle point of the sleeves just like this, and then I'm going to open it up like this, and I'll bring in my bias. So remember, I marked the middle point of the bias earlier, and the bias is folded into two. So I'm also going to open the bias up like this, and I'll place the middle point of the sleeves on the middle point of the bias like this, and I'll use the other end of the bias to cover it up just like this, so that by the time I'm done sewing, everything is going to come out really neat. And then I'm going to pin it down. After pinning, I'm just going to go ahead and stitch from the beginning down to the end of this bias. I'll also go ahead and repeat the same thing for the other sleeves. So guys, I've gone ahead to sew. You can see the inside and the outside is very neat because the rough edges is inside the bias. So I'll bring back my front piece. Remember, I said we should not sew it yet, and I'll also bring my sleeves. I'm going to place my sleeves on the front piece like this, and we are going to pin the ruffles on the cup area. So if you don't understand, just look at what I'm doing. But before I start pinning, I'm going to go up by 1.5 inch from the base of my top, because we are still going to hem this top, so we need allowance, we need our hemming allowance. So what I'm going to do is to remove the pins on the cup area, and then I'm going to place my ruffle, that is my sleeves, inside the bustier cup like this. So I'm going to place them right sides facing each other like this. So I'm going to go ahead and pin the three piece of fabric together. So I'm pinning my ruffles and the two front piece. I'll make sure that I align everything, and then I'll pin from the beginning to the end. After doing that, I'll repeat this same thing for the other area of the cup, and then I'll go ahead and sew. I forgot to mention earlier that you should hem the neckline of your top and also the armhole area. So if you are not using a lining for this tutorial, please don't forget to hem. You have to hem before you do this step. So guys, I'm done pinning. So make sure you check well before you go ahead and sew. Make sure everything is sitting perfectly before you sew. So I'm going to go ahead and sew. So after sewing, guys, this is what I have. This is what it looks like. For the back, I've already gone ahead to hem the neckline area. So what we are going to do now is to create our loop. So I'm going to bring this piece of fabric. The wideness is 1 inch, so I'm going to fold it like this. I'll fold the other end, and then I'll fold together. I'll go ahead and sew on a straight line to create my loop. So guys, I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. So the length of my loop is going to be 3 inches. So I'm going to cut out, and I'll use that one to cut the other ones that I'll be needing. So guys, I'm done cutting. I'll go ahead and start creating my channel. So what I'll do is to take one of the loop, and then I'm going to fold it like this in form of a circle. I'm going to place it, I'll pin it down. I'll go ahead and mark 1.5 inches away from the first loop that I placed, and then on that mark I'm going to take another loop, I'll place on it, and I'll pin it down. So you can decide to do it 1 inch apart, 2 inch apart, 2 inches apart, sorry. It depends on how you want it. It depends on how open you want your back to be. You can even decide to do 1/2 inch apart. I'll keep repeating the same thing till I get to the end. So guys, I've gone ahead to pin my loops down, and this is what I have. So since I'm not using a lining, I want to turn this loop area. This is my fabric that I cut out in form of a bias, so I'm going to be using it to turn the loop area. So I'm just going to place it on it like this, and I'm going to sew on a straight line. So I've gone ahead to sew it, and this is what I have. I'm going to turn it over like this, and then I'll run a straight stitch on it from the beginning to the end. So guys, I'm done sewing, and this is what I have. At this point, if you want to add a boning to the channel, you can go ahead and do that, but I'm not going to be doing that for this tutorial. The next thing I'll do is to mark out the points where I want to sew my ruffles for the back. So I'm going to go out by 2.5 inches from the loop area. I'll mark into a straight line. I'll make sure it's visible, and the line is going to stop at where the loop stops. So I'll go ahead and bring back my front piece, and this is what is looking like. I'll bring the back piece, the one that is meant for this part of the back, and I'm going to place the ruffles on the straight line, and then I'm going to go ahead and pin. I'll pin the ruffles to the back piece, and then I'll go ahead and sew. So make sure you create a straight line so that you know where to sew. I'll repeat the same thing for the other parts of the back piece, and then I'll go ahead and sew. So guys, I've gone ahead to sew the ruffles on the back piece, and this is what I have. So what I'm going to do now is to arrange this top properly. So I'm going to place the back piece on the front piece, just like you see me doing, right sides facing each other, and I'll go ahead and pin the sides. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side of this top, and then I'll go ahead and use my allowance to join the front and the back together. After joining the back and the front together, I'll also go ahead and hem the base of my top, and then I'll cut out a very long rope that I'll be using to lace my loops. So guys, I'm done sewing, and this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do now is to lace my loop, and that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. I hope you are able to learn something from this tutorial. If you have a question, you can go ahead and leave it in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel if you're not a subscriber. I'll see you guys in the next one.